argument, he makes some good points. And like you said, Jason, yeah, his points, they actually point towards Alberta sovereignty. But the other thing you'll notice with people like Jason and Thomas Lukasik and other status quo advocates is their emotions are heavily favor, they heavily favor, pardon me, their arguments heavily favor fear, specifically emotion. Jason Kenney paints a picture of a complete, total apocalypse if Alberta decides to self-determine. We're going to lose our passports, we're going to lose our mobility, we're going to lose our airports, all of these things. And as you watch this, it's like, he's seen, as I've seen, examples in the last few decades of places being independent. I think since 1993, we have 38 new countries. So this isn't a new thing. But yeah, they're stooping to the lowest common denominator, which is fear, to try and prevent people from thinking critically about the future and making good decisions. It's somewhat pathetic, I think.
And the current one that really is, as somebody who likes to stick to the facts and not use emotion for things to have arguments, I'm really perplexed by the current one that Kenny kind of ended the debate with, which was, well, Canada is not going to, respect your citizenship, your passports. You're not going to be able to leave Alberta. You're going to be in this prison now. We're going to be horrible neighbors. He's talking on behalf of Canada.
Yeah,
we're going to be horrible neighbors to you. We're not going to trade with you. Everything's going to stop. We're going to basically put walls around you and put you guys into a prison. Okay. So when I hear arguments like that, first, you're already headed that way. Okay. So that's not much of a threat. It already feels like we're headed in that direction. But what a way to respond. That's kind of like a couple breaking up. And one of them saying, I'm going to make your life absolutely miserable for the rest of your life, instead of being a good neighbor or working together to raise the children. Or, yes, we can't stay together, but let's at least make sure that everybody else, the families, everything else is fine. This retaliatory type of response from them, it's going to be so bad for you if you leave us, is part of the abuse that we're trying to leave. Yes, and I don't think they realize that.
Yeah, and why is it that even people like Jason Kenney, they will support, advocate, and recognize other places that pursue self-determination. For example, Kosovo, and more recently Palestine. But they wouldn't recognize Alberta. And why do people believe for a second that common sense would end when Alberta is self-determined? That mutually beneficial trade agreements would end? Why would they believe that it would be not in both parties' best interest to continue with certain things, like, for instance, being able to move across Alberta or, trade, things like that? Why do they always assume or push the worst case scenario? I don't believe for a second that we would experience that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, same.
I think if it gets to the point of the negotiation stage, that there will be lots of cooperation. Line 9 goes all the way to Ontario for energy. We've got the West Coast ports that needs to get their products all the way to the east. There's a lot of places to negotiate. Security. Let's make sure that we're working together on security. One comment I saw recently, you won't be part of NATO.
Okay.
Good. Okay. We're absolutely fine. You're not going to drag us into European wars. Okay, that's fine. But you're not going to be part of NORAD. No, we certainly will be.
Yeah.
The Americans will absolutely work with us on that. You won't have a military. I think it was you or even Marty that says we're more armed as Albertans than the military. I'm not sure where you're going with this one. And what are you implying? Are we going to need a military against BC and Saskatchewan? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I'm far more optimistic that the negotiation stage is going to go fine. It's going to be like a divorce where sad to see this end, but let's see how we can be good together. More like what Wilson said. We're going to be great neighbors to Canada, and we're going to have plenty of trade. We're going to have BC wine on our shelves. No problem. We're going to have canola from Saskatchewan. I don't see why they want to paint this abusive, repressive, retaliatory picture, because that's helping. Now, Chris, I think you may have been paying attention to Brexit. A lot of support to leave the European Union came because the stay people were so arrogant and abusive to everybody that a lot of people said, well, that's what we're trying to leave. What you're painting here is what we're trying to leave. So that many people actually joined the leave side and won that referendum. So what are your thoughts about that?
I'm intrigued by the whole Brexit thing. So Brexit was an example of a nation pursuing self-determination, but there's a few key differences. The first thing is that Brexit was controlled largely by politicians. Politicians had their fingers in it from the beginning right to the end, and they did politician things and they made politician mistakes. One of the biggest was that Brexit, well, it wasn't the hard exit from the European Union that people believe it was, and myself included. They actually continued with some specific European Union agreements out of fear. The politicians were fearful. And some of this is specifically with trade. When they did that, what they did was they actually gave up the negotiating leverage that they would have had if they were a completely sovereign nation making their own decisions. So it is a completely different thing. Furthermore, this wasn't it wasn't a nation pursuing their own constitution. The UK, they don't have a constitution. At least I don't think they do. And Alberta really, the idea of Alberta independence isn't about leaving something. It's about moving on, growing up, and doing something ourselves. It's about building something for the first time in Canadian history, and that is a constitution that we write. So there are two very different, very very different things: Brexit and Alberta independence. And I think the most important thing to realize there is what the politicians did. Right, the Alberta independence movement has been almost, I would say, just about 100% grassroots, done by Albertans who want change for them. Brexit was not that.
I gotta be honest with you. Every time you say Brexit, because you have the whistle stop, I'm thinking of a breakfast that you can take with you. So like a breakfast to go. Maybe you can call that a Brexit. You get a nice egg sandwich and some bacon and go on the road.
But I like the statement, we can do it ourselves. It's
a
time we
birth.
can do it ourselves.
It's a birth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then when we look at it solely as a separation or divorce, I think we're missing the bigger picture. That may be one of the steps, but it's like a birth. And even the baby separates from the mom during a birth. And there is a little bit of trauma, but everybody heals and then starts growing from that point on. So maybe looking at more of a birth of a new nation, and we have that opportunity is another way to look at it. One of the comments
we don't. Sorry, Jason. We don't when we move at our parents' house. We don't call that a divorce. We don't look at it as a negative thing. We look at it as, hey, this is an exciting new opportunity. We're going to self-determine. We've grown up, and now it's time for us to take control of our own futures. And that's really what Alberta wants to do.
Yeah, and I like that analogy too, because right now what Canada is saying is, well, you're going to have to do your own laundry and your own cooking, and you're not going to be welcome here for Christmas anymore, and you're not going to get birthday presents from me anymore. Like, that's kind of the attitude they're taking, and I don't think that's very healthy. And just like a good family, maybe once in a while we'll have to come back and say, hey, yeah, you were right. I now have bills to pay, and I wasn't aware that the electricity has to be paid or it's going to be shut off. Yes, there might be some growing pains, but just like every teen that eventually leaves the nest. Well, actually, nowadays you're in your 20s and 30s doing it because of the affordability. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of one of the points of why we should be doing this on our own. Once it's done, you start your own family, and then you show back up for birthdays and Christmas and barbecues and other things. So I have a lot more faith that Canada and Alberta is going to have a good relationship when this is all done. It's not going to be what Jason Kenney is talking about. So as we move forward on this, one of the major steps, though, is Danielle Smith, she's come out against it. Okay, so she's kind of taken the David Cameron role, which is the government is taking a position. Their position is to stay, but the grassroots effort has happened in Brexit can absolutely override the government when the vote comes in. So one of the ways to get there, though, is through education and reaching out to a lot more people and having these let's talk conversations. Going forward, are you going to start focusing on areas where there's more resistance to the idea of leaving, like in the cities?
Yeah. So first of all, I do want to say that I'm really disappointed with the way Danielle Smith and the UCP government is handling this. I'm watching them also succumb to the fear factor. I read something yesterday that Danielle Smith has mentioned that this is going to be so difficult. It's going to cost like $400 billion. We could never do this. I've seen some numbers and some estimates, and sure, some are doomsday like that, but the majority are not. Like that's not a mainstream number she's promoting, and she's doing it to make people fearful of this change. And it's actually, it is really disappointing. And I don't think it's in her best interest. So I guess she's standing on her principle. because the majority of her base does not feel the same way, and I think she's going to, she's going to really feel the pressure on this very shortly, which is, it sucks because I do like her and I appreciate some of her efforts so far.
Yeah, that number 400 billion, she said in August, we're going to see where that came from. And I think when you actually see it, maybe there's a lot of assumptions. Like with numbers, there's always assumptions. There's usually a whole section that says, here are the assumptions we made. And one of them is going to be worst case scenario, Canada doesn't cooperate. We have to start completely from scratch. And that might be, and we may have to fight and court costs, like the total worst case scenario. And then beyond that, like, because the numbers that I've looked at for other countries that went through this in the last 40 years or so, it's nowhere near that. It's nowhere near that. The UK, it was 40 to 50 billion for Brexit to finish that up. And that's 4 countries, not one country. And it's a lot more people than Alberta. Yeah. And they also don't have the kind of resources that we have in order to fund these kind of things. 350 billion or so is owed by CPP. I don't know if that's factored in at all. And we just got an announcement yesterday that they're going to cut back on elderly benefits in Canada. So where is the OAS? Where is the CPP? Like, what are you talking about? You're talking about actually going after the seniors and their income. I think the stage is being set here, Chris, that at least we should be taking the pension plan. We should be doing the policing. Yeah. And by the way, some of her numbers actually shoots her in the foot on some of the other conversations she's been having. Like, what do you mean it's going to cost that much to bring police? Like, you got to show us some of these numbers now, because these are not the same numbers you were using before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's where I have here's where I have some contention. So Danielle's position is a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, correct?
Yeah.
What has she done to pursue Alberta sovereignty in the least? The biggest factor in being a sovereign Alberta, in taking Quebec's example, is collecting our own taxes. I mean, we can pursue sovereignty all we want. If we do within Canada, there's going to be times where we end up in front of the Supreme Court defending our position on something, much like Quebec has. For instance, Quebec is now on round 5 of Supreme Court battles over their language laws. So Quebec has language laws that are unconstitutional. They go against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And Quebec says, we don't care because this is how we want to do things. We are sovereign. And they go to the Supreme Court and they fight it out, and the Supreme Court rules against them. Quebec goes back and they change a paragraph in the bill and they put it back in, and now they're on round 5. The reason they can do that is because they collect their own taxes. If Alberta tries to do anything to take some sovereignty that the status quo of Canada benefits from, Canada will just withhold the money that they collect from us. So Ottawa collects our taxes, folks. If you don't know that, they collect our provincial tax and they collect our federal tax and GST and all those excise taxes and everything. The only thing Alberta collects is corporate tax. So at the end of the day, we don't have the capability and the leverage to pursue sovereignty that Alberta or that Danielle Smith is talking about. And that kind of, it unravels her entire argument, because how can you argue that position and then have your actions completely kneecap it? It doesn't make any sense, and it's a recipe for failure. She actually, I watched a press release that she did. She was talking about an Alberta Revenue Agency, Alberta tax collection. And she said, well, I don't know. It seems like this is going to cost about $1 billion, and we just don't have an appetite to do that right now. And it was at that point that her entire argument for a sovereign Alberta completely fell apart, and I started questioning the path that we were on under her leadership.
Yeah, she's frequently called upon the Alberta, the Quebec template that they have, and saying we need that here. She said,
well, the Alberta Next panel was exactly that. Like
exactly.
The whole question there was, should we function more like Quebec?
Yeah.
Because each of the things that she brought to the table for conversation and comment was what Quebec has already.
Yeah. And then I was going to say, then the last time she was on the show with Jason, who brought up the Alberta pension plan, and that went from potentially something that we were looking to do, now that she'd even said it wouldn't even be until like 2027 before it was even going to be considered. So there's lots of things that, yes, we could be doing to become more sovereign within Alberta, absolutely, but it doesn't seem that there is an appetite from the UCP right now to try and achieve it.
The pension 100%. Plan right there should be happening, because right now we just got another notice that seniors benefits are going to be cut by the Canadian government. Why? Because Canada's under a serious debt load. Why? Because spending is out of control and the Canadians are paying for that. That alone should be like, hey, Danielle, like, can we get on the pension plan conversation now? Can we just move that over? Because quite frankly, I don't really care what Canada is going to do to that. I want to take care of our seniors. Our seniors should not be worried about their paycheck, or not their paycheck, but their income every month and how are they going to live. That should be taken off the table immediately. And that can be taken off the table with a stroke of a pen. Well, she now put a referendum in the way of that one. That should be the 11th question then. At this stage, because seniors are being cut again, let's focus on that one. Let's get that one done. And here's something, Chris, I didn't understand, and I still don't understand. All of the 9 questions that she had on the referendum prior to can be solved with independence. Like, you know, you don't have to ask for permission or try and change the constitution of a country to get this stuff done. This could be done. The first 5 policy ones around immigration and how we do our spending there, she can do that now. And if she did that now, that actually might alleviate some of the concerns for people who want independence, because, well, she's doing the work. As long as she's not doing that work, the call for independence gets stronger and stronger. So I'm not sure, you know, what her advisors are telling her and suggesting to her, and I'm not sure why she's now taken the most extreme cost as an argument, but I don't think she's helping her political future by making these arguments at this stage. Do you think if the referendum comes back as, well, not the stay side, but the go ahead and have a referendum side, that she may see that as a signal, a non-confidence in her leadership because she lost, like she was on the other side? Do you think she may resign or consider resigning if it comes back that way?
I don't think so. I think the 91% approval she got in her last leadership review has stuck with her and her advisors. I believe that they think that they have the political capital to go this route. And I got to say, you know, these conversations are difficult for me because I really admire what some of the things that she's done, some of the things that she's said. I've been very supportive. But at the end of the day, I believe in a sovereign Alberta. And she campaigned on a sovereign Alberta within United Canada. That's fine. And she seems to have actually taken steps to prevent Alberta sovereignty. The referendum imposed in order to take control of our pension, that is absolutely, completely ridiculous. If you believe in Alberta sovereignty, why would you shackle Alberta from making a decision like that? And this isn't even an in-depth policy debate. This is math. The math says that an Alberta pension plan managed by Albertans, able to be changed by Albertans, would benefit Albertans, period. It's an easy argument to make. And she put a referendum in the way. But it gets so much worse. There are a number of things, dozens of things that our government could do, or any provincial government for that matter, could do to start taking control of some things of their sovereignty. For example, my friend Benoit Trudeau, he talks about how Alberta, our royalties, the oil companies, every Friday they deposit their royalty payments into a CIBC branch in Toronto, and this is billions of dollars. And just over the weekend alone, the money that's deposited injects like $2 or $3 million into the Ontario economy through the branch in Toronto. You know, with the stroke of a pen, with one letter, Brian Jean could close that account, open an account with ATB, and have our royalties deposited here in Alberta, supporting Alberta businesses and injecting that $3 million a week into Alberta. And yet they don't. There's many ministerial letters that could be written like that to start taking control of our sovereignty, to become a sovereign Alberta within United Canada. And not one of those steps has been taken. And even worse, we have a referendum in the way of one of the most important ones for our seniors. So I got to say, Jason, I'm at a crossroads here, and it's a very emotional thing. And I'm not happy with what I see.
And I know that this one's bugging you because at the 2024 AGM, you pulled me aside and said, look, we need to support Danielle on this, the Bill of Rights, et cetera, et cetera. But I said to you then, I'm like, I'm sorry, I won't be supporting her on this one. I was one of the 8% that said no at that particular one, because the Bill of Rights that we were all debating and talking about and having meetings about in the AGM was not the one that was currently on the floor in the legislature just 2 or 3 days before the AGM started. So I had that awareness that we got a bit of a bait and switch here, and it's not quite what's on the table here. So at that point, I did vote no to her leadership. I was one of very few people that didn't have that yes button on my shirt at that one. But you were one that came up to me and said, look, we got to support her on this one. We want to get this done. Now you're on the fence. Let's just say on the fence, undecided on the leadership. And that's, by the way, that's where I am too now. I'm on the undecided, because I do think this is a tough position to be a Danielle Smith at this point in history in Alberta. But what I'd love to see her do is step away from putting her thumb on the scale and don't pick a side. I was much happier with her when she did that. But I also think one more thing to throw out there to you, Chris, is she's surrounded by people who want to be Federalist. Many MLAs, not all, but many of the MLAs around her in the caucus are not for independence. I sat down with an MLA on Sunday and had a direct conversation about this, and he's like, yeah, I'm not for independence. I think you guys are well, not me directly, he said separatist. And I was trying to learn from him, why do they want to be Federalist? And it turned out a lot of the people around her are that way. Right now, through the UCP, nominations can be put in for new candidates for MLA for the next election, 2027. They're actually doing that process right now. If we were to surround Danielle Smith with more like minds, people that want a lot more sovereignty, do you think that would help her get back to that part of her ambitions? Because at one point she was far more willing to talk about independence and fight stronger for sovereignty. Do you think the people around her might be the reason why she's having difficulties doing that? I'm just throwing it out there because we've seen her change, and I'm trying to figure out what was the change here.
You know, it could be. But before I talk about that, you mentioned the Bill of Rights debate that was kind of adjacent to the leadership review.
Yeah.
So when I saw that the proposed Bill of Rights, and I saw that early, included a Section 1 type clause that allowed the government to basically do the same thing as they did to me and throw someone in jail for protesting, which is a right. I was absolutely livid, and I started having some conversations with some MLAs and some ministers and people in the Premier's office, and I explained, like, this is absolutely ridiculous, and I told them this, what's going to happen to some of the support if this goes through. And they actually, some of them had no idea what I was talking about. They didn't understand that what the government was doing was laying the groundwork for some of the things that we saw during the COVID time.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I got through to many of them, and they agreed that, oh yeah, this is we have to make sure that this goes right. And they assured me, they promised me that the Bill of Rights that we would see would not have that Section 1 clause in it. And that's what prompted me to say, hey, we need to support the Premier on this. It's going to work out okay. And then after I see the Bill of Rights, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I've still got the text. I had conversations with the people saying, oh, we've been talking about this and we're going to make sure that this isn't in there. So that really hurt. Now your question is, if we surround Danielle with enough people who believe in independence, will it change things? And I'm going to answer no. I don't think it will. And the reason is because it doesn't matter how good your cookie dough is. If you have a couple pieces of poop in the cookies, it ruins the whole batch. We've heard that before somewhere, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And unless we get rid of every single federalist-leaning individual who's willing to sacrifice Alberta prosperity in the name of the status quo that benefits them, we will not achieve our outcome. I don't really think that people understand the complexity of the machine that we're trying to work within. And I said this at the very beginning when we were trying to remove Jason Kenney. The UCP was a unholy merger of a principled party with Alberta values and an Alberta vision for the future, and a status quo loving federalist bootlicking contingent that benefited greatly from the injustices that Alberta sees within Confederation. And that has pursued, and nothing's changed. We've worked to change the boards. We've put freedom-minded individuals on the provincial board. We've changed CAs. We've supported specific MLA nominees for different CAs. And the end result is still a machine that garners our resources and then uses them to work against us. For instance, right now there's a surge in UCP memberships. People are buying UCP memberships and they're thinking, well, if I just get involved, because this is actually true, if you get involved and use your voice from within democracy, you can make a difference. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think in this case, what we're trying to make a difference in, it's just not allowed. I don't think you can. So now we're pumping millions of dollars into a machine that is campaigning actively against Alberta self-determination. And it's troubling. It's really troubling. So no, I don't think that that machine can be changed to suit our purposes any longer.
Well, I have a little bit more optimism on that front, Chris, to be frank with you, because if we change some of the cogs in the machine, then maybe we can change the machine. I want to keep that optimism on the table, because if that one's off the table, we got nothing left. So if we are not able to get independence started and we are not able to change the machine, where are we at right now? So I'm going to keep a little bit more optimism, and I have this naivety in me, which I still don't want to kill just yet. Because I do think if we change some of the cogs in the machine, that will help. I don't think it will hurt, unless what you're describing here is once you're a cog in the machine, you're no longer a cog. You are going to be changed into something else just to benefit the machine. And that's where my naivety hasn't changed yet. I still believe that this could happen. But I've been wrong before. My federal election run, I had to wake up to the fact that Canada is not fixable when it comes to trying to get good MPs in there. Canada is not ready for independent MPs, and they weren't ready for another new third party either. So I thought, we just need to talk to the people and we can get some good MPs into that parliament and fix this. I learned the cold, hard truth, April 28th, 2025, that's just not the way this machine works. You don't even get in there unless they can control you. Unless you're more of a lever, they can use the lever on you instead of being a free-thinking cog. That's where I learned that lesson. I'm keeping a little bit of optimism that Alberta is not lost on that front yet, because I do think Alberta can be the last place where we have our freedom and we can still fight for it. But on that note, we do got to jump over to our private section. There's definitely a couple more questions I have for you, but happy to remind everybody about Winfield. Go check out letstalkalberta.com. We'll be talking a lot more about your events now that we're registered as a TPA, so we can, absolutely promote a site and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be talking about your events a lot more. And are you going to be a TPA, or where's your current mind on that? Because that period just started.
No, and we're not going to be a TPA. And just to be clear, Let's Talk Alberta doesn't have a side. Let's Talk Alberta as an organization isn't an advocate for any specific outcome on any specific referendum question. The speakers certainly have opinions, which they share in a charter-protected manner of freedom of expression. We'll share that with people who choose to listen, and then we invite those attending to challenge our opinions and talk with us about things. So no, we won't be a TPA. We believe that it's just important to get people in rooms and talk about these things. And we encourage those who disagree with our personal opinions to come and talk about the things that are important to them.
Okay, so those are the exceptions. So I think I'm not giving you legal advice. I've gone through the conversations with Elections Alberta, and if you're having speakers, commentary, and you're bringing forward any opinion, and you're not promoting a side, then you don't need to be a TPA. We will be promoting a side. So we're going to take that, I think, a bold step forward and actually start doing that. So we're going to have to become a TPA because we are going to promote a side.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think some more of those need to happen. Last message to Alberta before we cut over to our private section.
Yeah, last message. I guess no matter what we're seeing going on around us, what we're hearing in the news and things like that, we have to be more willing to talk about things openly and share our opinions with our fellow Albertans. We live in a time of cancel culture where it's more common to see one side try and shut down the conversation from the other rather than engaging in it with them. And that if we continue to allow that to happen, specifically in politics in Alberta, we're not going to get the outcomes that we need for ourselves and our kids and our grandkids. So at the end of the day, no matter what your opinions are or your political leanings, I would say let's just talk about it, Alberta, and we'll get to the best outcome.
Excellent.
Yep.
And yes, to Wildflower,
Yeah.
Winfield tonight, 6:30, doors open, 7 p.m. The conversation starts. You can go to letstalkalberta.com for more details. So hang on there, Chris. We'll be right with you. Okay. Yes, and I do feel his it's a tough pill to swallow when you thought you had somebody that was going to be in your camp. And I do remember these conversations with him about Section 1. And at that AGM 2024, I heard Mickey Amory himself say in the AGM, we are going to put in Section 1 because of course they're going to do it anyways. So we're going to put it in. So they knew at that point. So I'm not sure which MLAs he was talking to, whether or not their position was to fight against it, but they certainly couldn't commit to it because that ended up not being what was happening. And sadly, this is some of the things you need to watch. Like, look over here. This is what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
So at the AGM, they were talking about the black hat version, which everybody supported. Even I supported.
Yeah.
But the black hat version was not the one that went to the floor.
Like they printed it. It was in the documentation. It was discussed. This is what is it, and it was very disappointing.
Yep. And I think he's also correct that 91% support in 2024. They've been carrying that forward. And maybe that's why they are so confident on taking positions that a good chunk of their base is not happy with.
Yeah. Folks, if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead, like, subscribe, and share it out, please. Let's get the messaging out and get more awareness for the letstalkalberta.com website and information and events they're doing. And then if you want to continue this conversation right now with Chris, you can join us in our supporter section on locals, and you can go ahead and become a member of the Lavigne Show.
LavigneShow.com to get yourself started there for those that are listening. And we do have people always joining. So come and join us there as well.
Yeah. And otherwise, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rainy day. We've got a few more days to go. But anyway, hope you all have a fantastic day and see you tomorrow morning. Bye from me.
Or see you tonight in Winfield if you can make it there. We'll be there and hanging out with Chris and see what the speakers have to say. Take care, everybody. Love you all very much. And God bless.